Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey. And I had probably half a dozen people in this small room. This is a converted bedroom turned into a whiskey room. And the funny thing is, I have a bar downstairs and a fairly big recreation room. But we've basically filled that full of bikes and fishing gear and guns and bows, and it's become more of a storage area. It's kind of a shame. If there's any whiskey left in the cabinets above the bar, it's probably well oxidized by now. So I don't know, maybe we'll redo that someday and maybe we won't. But in the meantime, we have half a dozen of us in this small room. And you know, one of the questions that came up as, you know, we were having a few drinks and that, Noel, what's in these boxes? Are they empty or is there whiskey in them? And you got to remember, this is a presentation. It's a small amount of, you know, and I'm saying this humbly, you know, it's a small amount, but I've been in places where, you know, there's 900 to 1,000 bottles of whiskey. And I'm lucky to have 350. So I've got a lot of it stored in cabinets and you know, containers and that. But this is what I show off as my backdrop. And if you notice, I've got boxes. Why have I got boxes? A lot of people that are reviewers with their backdrop, you won't see boxes like this. And I just do things my own way, and I just think the boxes are more colorful. So, you know, they pointed, you know, well, is there, what about that one? Is there whiskey in that Fettercorn? And I just did this and basically showed them. I had them basically point. Just point to something and I'll show you what's inside. And they, you know, they pointed to the Macallans, and yeah, there's whiskey in the Macallans. You know, there it is. It's not even been opened, you know. Yeah, there's whiskey in the air in here, you know. Glen Keith, the Glen Farkless, they all have whiskey in them. So one of the things that came up was, well, why don't you mention this to your viewers, because they probably think they're empty. I don't know how important that is, but I'm mentioning it, you know. That's a 23-year-old old Perth there. By the way, I have 2 bottles of that. So, you know, I think the big thing here is, this is my thing. I am not going to do what some humorous reviewers do. In fact, in a celebratory way. They basically do this. And they never ever see that container again. They feel this container is part of that bad carbon blueprint we're creating. In other words, we shouldn't have these in boxes. And there's quite a few reviewers that think that way. I've paid for the box. I am going to show the box off. That's the way it is. And I just think it's a more colorful backdrop. And here's a good example. I kind of like the color of this. You know, it's kind of neat. If you've ever been to Tobermory, it's a colorful place. That's not all that colorful, but this is. So I've had in my bar downstairs just bottles, and I don't think it was as colorful as this. So there you are. That's me. Who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind in, you know, a few years down the road, but that is not what tonight's all about, by the way. What we're doing tonight is we are going to review Springbank. In fact, we got a new bottle of the Springbank 10, and that is going to be our reviews. So hang in there. I babbled enough. We're going to get into a Springbank 10 review. So anyways, let's get this bottle open here. And let's give it the official pop. And the pour. bring the bottle up and take a look at the color there. And of course, that traditional bottle, I mean, you're familiar with this whiskey. If you've been to Springbank, this is usually what everybody leaves with is a 10. And we'll bring the glass up. Typical color of Springbank. Oily, viscous, and hard to get. They just don't produce enough of this stuff for the world market. So, Springbank, one of the most reviewed whiskeys, one of the hardest whiskeys to get. Probably more people are looking at Springbank reviews than any other review. It's a hype. And there's those that criticize the hype. There's those that are not fans of the whiskey because of the hype. And I see all these reviews, those that defend it, those that defend their opinions. Some feel a lot of people are lemmings and they just basically follow what other people think. It's kind of nice that the longer you are into this reviewing business, and it's not a business for me, this is fun. I don't make money at this. But the more you start to realize that there is a lot of hype on whiskeys. There's some whiskeys aren't worth the money as far as I'm concerned, and some are. If I was to spend the money that this would normally go for here in Canada, yeah, it's not worth it to me. But I didn't spend that kind of money. And what I can say is having a bottle of Springbank, 25 years ago, and my son bought me a bottle 25 years ago, so I never thought of it any other way than a really good whiskey. And I have enjoyed it ever since if I could get it. But it's definitely the hype is amplified since then. And, I feel qualified in doing this review because I've done reviews before on it where, I didn't feel pressure from the hype to have to give it a good review if it didn't really favor my palate. And I just have been very fortunate. Maybe all the bottles I've got have been pretty good. It suits my palate, maybe. I don't know. I'm one of these days maybe going to get a bad bottle. Maybe this will be the one. So, on that note, let's give it the nose. Right off the bat, I get a lot of fruit. I'm even getting some leather and some industrial notes. Yeah, kind of you get that industrial, almost a slight bit of peat. You get that smell from the floor of a shop. I've worked in various shops. I've done shipwright work and that. So the smell I'm getting is a mix of fruitiness and something industrial. And it's probably something you'd smell in a shop. Marzipan, some cinnamon, ginger, and I'm going to say there's something nutty about it. Citrus. It's a good nose. Let's go for the palate. Cilantro. I'm getting a little bit of pepper, spice. I'm tasting a little bit of that peaty background. The fruit is there, the cherry is there, the citrus is there. I'm getting some coffee notes, coffee, chocolate, cherries and chocolate. Something umami. Something meaty, vegetable notes, and It's got a very good coating on my mouth, on my tongue, on my mouth. There's a lot of body to this. Has it changed? I always think that this whiskey reinvents itself every time I drink it. There's always something new and different I get from it. And when we talk about consistency, how important consistency is, yeah, it's 46%. It's non-chill filtered. There's no color added. But in terms of consistency, there's always something different going on with this. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to get into the development and the finish. Salancheva. I would say a Lopsang Souchong tea. And I've got a good coating on my mouth. It's got a lot of body to it. A little bit of pipe tobacco. Certainly this is going to have a longer finish. But again, that's something I usually expect from the Springbank. Why don't we add a couple drops of water and just see what happens here. You got the rich leather happening now. A bit of a musky oak maybe. Furniture polish. Slight bit of that industrial stuff coming on here. Biscuity about it there. Anyways, the palate with water. Salancheva. Kind of an explosion of stuff going on here. I'm getting some eucalyptus, almost like cough drops, but then I'm also getting some cherry coke, maybe some cherry licorice, black licorice, minty. Definitely the fruit. The fruit is there, the dark fruit. Umami notes have kind of faded a bit there, but I'm going to talk about the finishing with water there. It's still a good strong coating. Like I say, that when I do a review on a Springbank, I almost feel like I'm starting something new, a new whiskey. There's definitely some familiarities, but also when I say it sort of reinvents itself every time I drink it, that's what I feel. And you know, as far as the hype, yeah, if you can get a bottle at a reasonable price, yes, it's well worth it. I probably would have to agree with some of the critics that, yeah, it's never worth something you can't afford. But through the years, I've really enjoyed this stuff. I've not had a bad bottle. I think I never really rated, you know, my experiences, because I think that as you go through time, your experience is relative, and you can say, well, this bottle was better or it's worse than the previous. And it's not necessarily the bottle. It could be you and your palate, and it has a lot to do with what we're doing, what's going on around us. So I think when things are real bad, when you've got a real bad bottle, you'll know it. But a lot of times we have a tendency to we're looking at this fine line between, is this better or worse? And I think it's just has a lot to do with that moment. And right now, this is definitely a winner. It is going to continue as one of the strong players on my shelf, as well as in my reviews. It's got a strong history of doing well in my reviews. So I'm going to be a defender of the Springbank tonight, and I'm also probably influenced by the fact that I didn't pay a lot for this bottle, so that makes it even more wonderful. And I will say that this is definitely an 87-ish, 88 bottle for a 10, which is a very high score. And darn it, if you have never had a taste of a Springbank 10, pop over to the house here and I'll pour you a dram. And on that note, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, and do not drink and drive until the next time. Salanjaba.